Hi, I'm Alicia Elliott, and I'm the author of And Then She Fell. This novel is specifically about a Mohawk woman named Alice who's suffering from mental health issues as she's dealing with her baby and being postpartum and away from her community with a husband who has perhaps dubious motives, but more broadly, in a universal sense, it's about what it means to be living in a society that allows genocide to continue and, in fact, encourages it because it fits to a particular liberal standard of being polite, of being, cowardly in that way. And therefore making everyone who is suffering underneath it feel like they are crazy. So I think that this novel and the things that it's talking about are especially pertinent today. And in particular, also the mental health crisis that's happening, as well as the addiction crisis that's happening as we speak. Those both are also dealt with in the book alongside issues of colonization, of racism, of, feminism, what it means to tell stories, and the responsibility of a storyteller to the people that that person is telling stories to. So yeah, lots of things that are in this story and lots of reasons I think that it's important today. And, as long as we have genocides continuing, I think it's always going to be important. Hopefully that stops. The protagonist of And Then She Fell is a woman named Alice. She has lived her entire life on Six Nations and in many ways has been in a perhaps codependent relationship with her mother that in some ways has made her feel resentment towards her mother because she's been dealing with a drug addiction, with chronic pain and other disabilities. But in another sense, it allows Alice to not have to worry about fulfilling her potential, whatever that may be, until she meets her husband, Steve. And he kind of allows her, in some sense, to imagine an ulterior life for herself, or alternative life for herself. And from there, she kind of gets swept up in this romance that takes her off reserve, away from her family, away from her community. And when her mother dies, in some sense, a part of her dies too, this part that wasn't acknowledging what her mother meant to her and what her responsibilities were to her. So she's living with this extreme guilt as she has a daughter with Steve called Dawn while she's living in Toronto in a suburb. Well, not really a suburb, but, in Toronto. And she, from there, things start to get a little bit confusing for her because these images, these voices that she recalls from when she was young start coming back and manifesting in different things speaking to her that shouldn't be speaking to her. And she starts to wonder whether she's losing her mind the way that her grandmother did, or whether this stuff is real. And of course, this is compounded by the polite racism that she experiences around her, where when she says, was there something racist about that? The way that it's composed and said by the people who are putting it upon her, have that plausible deniability to say, no, of course not. What do you mean? So I think that I really root for Alice. I love her. She is trying very hard to keep things straight and do the right thing in a world that is very happy to see her not succeed, to not even survive. First novels are special because they allow an author to kind of give the world something that is unique. It's, as a debut novelist, it's our attempt to kind of make sense of things and work through issues through a story, a long form story that goes over hundreds of pages. And it allows us to kind of really think through what the world that we're writing about is, what the world we're writing against is as well. And the fact that we haven't done it before kind of allows, in some sense, a play that we're allowed to do. Like we kind of play, I suppose, and really make a statement on what our art is and what we want it to do. It's kind of a mission statement in that sense. And fiction, art, like whatever fiction we write following that, I think, is in some sense always going to be informed by the first novel that we wrote. So yeah, I think it's really exciting to see people kind of expressing who they are, what their art is and what it's doing, what it's meant to be, and in some sense what they want the world to be, or what maybe the world is and what we wish it wasn't. To anyone writing their first novel, I would say have fun with it. I think there's a lot of pressure to write novels a particular way and to kind of go down that well-trodden path. And that's not fun necessarily. Really just allow yourself to imagine bigger, to dream bigger. What can a novel do? What can our focus on particular characters say? And, you know, also just kind of break it down into pieces too. I think sometimes when we think of novels, they're so long, it feels very intimidating. But when you think of it as, I'm just going to focus on the next few hundred words, or I'm just going to focus on the next chapter, then it feels much more manageable. And then once you have a full draft, it's much easier to look at it and then say, okay, what am I actually saying here? What do I actually want to do? What are the parts that are, you know, that I can cut away so that I can make space for better pieces that fit easier in? Oh my God, it's a terrible question to ask me which books are on my side table or bedside table or anything, because my books are everywhere around the house. So right now, I have Oil People by David Hubert. It's not out yet, but it's going to be out. It's amazing. That I'm finishing up reading to blurb. I have Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy in my bag over there. I'm also reading Nothing and Everything at Once, which is an essay collection by Jenny Hygen Wills. It's brilliant. She's so smart and her writing is beautiful. And I believe it's Fire Exit by Morgan Talty. It's his first novel. He wrote Night of the Living Rez, which is a book of short stories that is so beautiful and powerful. And there's something that every time I read one of his stories, I just don't understand how he accomplished what he accomplished in the story. So yes, I guess those are things for you to maybe put on your to read list. Since a lot of them aren't coming out yet, I'm just in a blurbing zone, so all the books that I'm reading are not out yet for the most part.